Hey guys, Johnny Quirk back once again here to support your entrepreneurial journey. Okay, cool. So today I'm delighted to say that we have Emily Cunnane from InSpace here. Emily, great to have you here.
Hello, how are you?
I am very, very good, thank you. I'm very, very good. And what I would like to say today is that I'm delighted to have you on the show because what a lot of people don't know out there is that I'm a secret architecture nut, and I've been getting into interior design myself a lot over the last few years. So I'm not an expert at all, but I know that you are. So I'm delighted to have you here and obviously share your kind of journey with all of our listeners and viewers. So first off, in your own words, could you describe exactly what your business is and what it does?
Good question. So my business is an interior design studio based in Dublin city centre. Um, I work on both commercial and residential projects. Really, I guess my aim with my designs is to create spaces that feel joyful, that people are happy to be in, because interior design is, it's much more than kind of fluff and cushions, which is not a lot of what I do. It's really, good interior design can impact on your own life, on your own life at home, but also can impact on a business, whether it's retaining staff, attracting clients, all that kind of stuff. So I suppose my business really about trying to design spaces for people that that feel good to be in. So that comes down to the functionality as well as the aesthetics. So that's I guess it's good for me. It's good to have that overall aim, because it then enables me to kind of, I guess, concentrate then on the detail
Yeah.
beyond that.
And I guess on a commercial level, you do all sorts of things like bars, restaurants, hairdressers, or do you have a specific niche? And when it comes to, say, people's homes, on a domestic level, like who are your clients? I'm just interested in who the kind of clients you are that you work with.
Yeah, I think, as I go on in my career, I'm kind of attracting, it's nice because I'm attracting more of the right type of client for me. I
Yeah.
think the more work that you put out, the more people start to kind of recognize your style or the way you approach design. So you in turn begin to attract that person,
Yeah.
which is good, because then you're not, because then your work, you make better work when you're enjoying what you're doing, when
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not designing something that you're not really into. So like the kind of the perfect client for me is someone that, it's simple, right? It's someone that when they go on holidays, they like to go to art galleries to look around. They might stay in boutique hotels. They might appreciate art and culture and travel, and it's someone like that kind of is interested in the process of design rather than trends, or rather than just entirely functionality, you know what I mean, like
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful
I do.
objects and work craftsmanship and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
I
yeah.
think that sounds great. And, like actually what I like about what you're saying here is that, I think from doing my research, you started in 2018 with this, and we're going to dig into that a little bit later. But actually, as people I've interviewed on this show, personal trainers, life coaches, when they started out their business, they were like, I'll take anybody,
Yeah.
I'll work with anybody just to get some customers. But actually, as you've grown your brand and evolved, you're able to get more niche, in terms of the clients you want to work with. You obviously want to work with a certain type of people, and then you can double down. And I guess that's probably where the
Yes.
real success comes from.
100%, 100%. And like, to be fair, you can't really do it at the beginning, because you do need to build up your portfolio, and you are a little bit desperate at the beginning, when you're
Yeah.
you're taking everything, you are taking everything. But like, yeah, I think it takes a little bit of time to get to that stage. I'm still getting there now, but I definitely am finding that people now are seeking me out because they want to work with me because they've seen previous projects. So like I said, then it just means that I can give them the best service because I'm much more interested in what I'm doing, you know, and I'm not just, I guess my thing, which is often also, you know, it makes my life a lot harder, but I don't churn out design the same things. Every design I'm always creating something new, and I'm working with new you know, I'm working with kind of like collaborating with new people. So I kind of make a road for my own back in that way, because I make it life a lot more difficult for myself, but otherwise I would be bored, I think.
But what was it? Was it, I think Frank Lloyd, right? Was it 22 houses, something he ever did, or something like that? I may have stolen that stat or completely made it up. Who knows? But you know, like, you know, but I think when you travel around the world, you know what's unique. They have those kind of touches. So I guess, like you said, not one is the same, you know, wherever you kind of like, you know, design. You may have already answered this, because I feel a real kind of passion coming through from you. And obviously you've built such a vibrant business, but what kind of gave you the idea to set this up? You know, where did the passion come from to say, this is my career, I'm starting a business, and this is what I want to do in my life?
So architecture was always like a first love of mine. So when I was back when I was in school, I wanted to be an architect a long time ago. And in Ireland, the point system didn't allow me to go and study architecture. So I went off and did events and that kind of, and you know, a whole other career. But within that events industry, I was still working within the creative side of it, so arts events and music events and stuff like that. And so I was always working on a certain level with kind of creative people and, you know, aesthetics and that kind of thing. And I traveled around the world, and I got, you know, again, got inspired by everything that I was seeing around the world. I came home after 8 years and I bought a house that had been dilapidated, basically had been used as a builder's storeroom for 15 years. So it was completely in bits. It had to be built from the ground up. And I didn't have money for an architect or anything like that. So I kind of wanted to have a stab at it myself. So I worked with an engineer and designed it all from scratch myself, completely. And once I did that, I kind of started to, I suppose I got a bit of a love back for it. And I was getting feedback from people saying, like, you might actually have a bit of a flair there, you know. And the house got featured a few times in magazines and that kind of thing. So I looked at going back to architecture, and I noticed that it was at least 7 years before I could do anything fun. So I thought, okay, maybe interior design is more the route that I should go down. So I went back and studied that. And then, once I had done my study, I was in the position where I thought, okay, well, now I have to make a decision. Do I go work for someone and learn the trade from the beginning, which would be great in one way, you know, learning from an established designer or a company. But I felt like, you know, I was in my mid-30s. Do I want to start like as an intern again? I've done this before, you know, like in a previous life. Or I could just go for it, you know, and just to hell with it and just see what happens, try and start up my own business, which is definitely a scarier option. But I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it.
But, you know, I think that's really strong, because actually, again, a lot of the people we've interviewed on this show, they've really decided to set something up because obviously it's their passion. They haven't just thought, how's the quickest way to get rich? You know, I'm going to go after that. It's literally just like, you know, we had Roger on recently, who's a personal trainer, nutritionist, and he was saying his health was going to shit basically, but he really kind of like started working on himself and then changed that lifestyle around, and now he's coaches people and he's very well established.
I think it's totally like I mean, every show that I watch is a house show, you know, when we go on holidays, we stay in Airbnbs because I want to, you know, I want to experience design in other countries. You know, I'm the one that goes to galleries and, you know, does architectural tours and stuff. So I like, my poor boyfriend always says that it's like a busman's holiday going away with me, but it is, but genuinely that all day long, that is what I consume, is just what I do. So I'm very fortunate. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly how you want life, really, isn't it? It's like when it doesn't feel like work, it's actually, like you said, a busman's holiday. If you're on holiday and you're like, look at these taps, look at, it's like, here's some inspiration. Exactly. But, then it inspires you and brings you on. And, that's why you do it. I guess that's what kind of fires your belly every day to get out of bed. In terms of this change in career, obviously you've kind of given some hints about some of the stuff that you were doing before, and that's great. I know you went back to training, you were doing this alongside obviously kind of other roles in the past. Was this a gradual step to set it up, or did you just go straight in? Like, did you need any other forms of income, or did you just go, I'm fully going into this right now?
So I went back to study part-time while I was working full-time. So I did a 2-year diploma, and I actually I did a 12-week course, first of all, just to see if I was kind of interested. And then I continued, and through that process I was thinking, this is something for me, but I guess I still was kind of considering it. And then I guess luckily I got made redundant and from my job at the time, and I just took it as a sign to just jump in. And it also enabled me to have a little bit of saving to kind of to keep me going for the first few months. So that was it was kind of a universe push.
And tell me about your background as well. I mean, you don't need to elaborate too much, but do you come from an entrepreneurial background where actually setting up a business is natural, that you have that support, you have people who've done it to look up to, that's very close to you? Or literally have you just fallen into it and you were like that? Or did you have aspirations to one day set up your own business?
I never had aspirations to set up my own business. In fact, it was, I remember having these conversations with my parents before, and I've always said I didn't want to do it because it sounded like really hard work. And I actually kind of like the comfort of having a boss to tell me what to do for a while. But I think my previous job, as community manager in Yelp, I was working on it was kind of a segue into entrepreneurship, because you're working on your own, even though you are in a team, and you're kind of, you're working remotely. So I was working remotely for a long time before this last couple of years came along. And so I think that gave me a certain level of independence. And I guess within my wider family, there are aunts and uncles that have started their own businesses, but I wouldn't say it was a huge factor. No.
Okay. That's fine. I wasn't too sure, if like Elon Musk was a distant cousin or something like that. So,
I wish.
Well, it's true actually. Yeah, you'd be like, I wouldn't be interior designing for a living. It's just like, I'll go and get into my latest Tesla that's just been delivered.
Exactly, I'd be a Tesla tester.
That is true. Let me put you on the spot because you're the one who brought it up. Do you think now that you've come so far in 3.5 years since setting it up, do you think you could ever go back to a salaried position? Do you think you could ever go back to that kind of comfort? Or now that you've got the entrepreneurial bug and know that you're doing something you love, is this it now, hopefully, for life?
Yeah, look, it is it. Like, there are some mornings, yesterday morning, where I woke up and I thought, oh my God,
what am I doing?
I wish someone would just tell me what to do, I wish I had a boss that would just tell me, okay, Emily, this is how you handle this. Sometimes you think, oh my God, this is hard. But at the same time, those days are a lot fewer, and I think the freedom that this type of position affords you, I don't think I would be able to give that up anymore. being able to, especially now, I think like the first couple of years in business were very tough, like financially, and also trying to understand what the hell I was doing, and trying to understand what my ultimate goal was and that kind of thing. And I think now I'm a lot more aware of that. So I'm much more aware of the types of jobs that I want to do. I'm more aware of where I'm going with the business. So I feel more confident in taking charge of, that aspect of the business, where before I didn't,
Because I guess it's not just, you being creative director and saying, we'll have yellow over here, we'll have some zebra print on the, you've got your, accounts to do, you've got contracts, you've got legal stuff, I guess, and we'll talk a little bit later about, working with freelancers and project managing. It's a multifaceted thing that you're doing. And I guess you've got to learn the basics, at least, of a lot of that to get going.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the biggest shock when you run your own business, because you think about, I'm going to run an interior design business. I know I'm good at it. People love my designs. It's what I love to do. But then you don't think that, like, actually, I'd say 50% of your time is spent on all the actual running a business stuff, which, like, you don't understand before you start.
Yeah, and it's
the
true,
non-fun stuff.
But I like what you just said as well. It answers my next question, which was really about how you stayed motivated and how you do it. But I like what you answered in terms of saying, look, there's less bad days now than there was at the start. As you grow in confidence, as you feel like you're having these successes, and you're growing your portfolio and followers and everything, it feels like you're scaling the mountain, I guess, and it's less harsh and unknowns at the start.
Yeah, I think it's about confidence and kind of control. Like, I think at the beginning you feel a little bit out of control because you don't really, you're a bit all over the place in terms of everything, advice you're getting, directions you're going in, projects you're taking on. Where when you become more focused, it definitely, you do feel calmer in your path, I
guess probably different challenges present themselves. You might think you have your bookkeeping under control or something else, but then you're all of a sudden going, I wonder if I can take on that hotel project in 5 years time, or you want to be more ambitious to push yourself. But hopefully, I guess then you've maybe I don't know what your vision is, but like maybe in a few years' time, you then have more of a support team, so as you can get on with more of the exciting things.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm developing at the moment. So I've probably just started developing over the last 6 months or so, outsourcing. The accounts, social media, the admin type stuff, technical drawings sometimes, and anything that I've started to realize that, like, my value is in the creative side and the directional side of the business, and anything that doesn't require that really, like, should be kind of panned out a little bit to allow me a bit more space.
No, definitely. Well, like I said, I think it's been amazing to see where you've kind of gone in the last few years as well. And I think it sounds like you're surviving, Emily. You've made it this far, which is great. There is no going back, and it sounds like you don't want to go back, which is great. So we're moving through into this part of the show now, where we sit down with our entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, and ask maybe for some of your kind of tips that might be relevant to other entrepreneurs across any fields, really. So I've done a little bit of research on your business, haven't been stalking too much, but it's good for me to get an idea of obviously what you guys do. So you've built up a pretty impressive social media following. I know you said before that you outsource some of it now, but like how has that kind of started? I guess it's a massive lead gen for you, your social media. I guess it's very visible, Instagram. But how have you built up that following? I guess you started obviously with an account of 0. You're now in the many, many, many thousands. How did you go about that social media strategy?
I have to be honest with you, I didn't have a huge social media strategy. I think I think the Instagram in particular is it's really important for my business because it's a visual shop front. You know, the industry that I'm in is a visual one, so I think it's, first of all, let me see. So first of all, there's two components of it. One is showing off your designs, and you know, you can talk until you're blue in the face about what you can do for someone, but unless you can show, you know, some really nice imagery of projects that you've worked on, then you know it's hard to kind of put that across. So Instagram is really good for that, but also I guess creating, conveying personality, or like, you know, your brand within it. So like my brand is as I've kind of talked about, it's very much about, you know, focus on art and design and craft and inspiration, you know, from various places, travel, you know, other forms of design, graphic design, films, that kind of thing. So I guess the Instagram is a really good portal to kind of to present all of those things. And I guess just curating those together, it's just evolved.
I guess because it's it seems highly organic from a external point of view to look at. It's not like everyone is like, sign up now for or whatever. It's more like it's more about education, it's more about inspiration, and then hopefully the lead gen comes from that.
It is, and I think it's quite a personal Instagram. Yeah, like you said, it's not the account that I have. It's not very salesy. I think probably my direct sales will usually come through word of mouth, recommendations, and some other places like House. But the Instagram is kind of like a secondary segment where people will use that, you know, to reference and to, you know, to kind of build, to get a bit of confidence in you. I guess
it's got that extra awareness, domain expertise, you know, they're able to follow you in real time and go, if I'm going to have Emily design my house or a retail unit, this is where she's at right now, and you know, this is what I want.
Exactly.
And, you know, this kind of follows on to my next question, which, you know, you've had some excellent press coverage. You know, I don't want to say you've won awards if you haven't, Emily, but, you know, like I see from your website, obviously you've been, you know, like appreciated, and I think you've won some awards as well. So in terms of that, do those things kind of almost generate themselves from your exposure, you know, that you're bringing through Instagram? Or are you going out there and having to create these opportunities yourself? You know, how much of it is inbound and how much of it is outbound?
I would say it's pretty much all inbound, because I haven't had the time. I just don't have the time to go out and do my own PR. So a lot of those press hits and the coverage that I've gotten, they've been, they kind of feed off each other. You know, the more exposure that you get, the more people see you, and then you know, they in turn start seeing different projects on your Instagram or Facebook or, you know, the website or whatever, and then they feature, and then it just kind of, it goes on from there, really.
It seems a lot more natural, I guess, getting it that way than going after like you know, you're nominating yourself every day for stuff, and it's the same old people and the same faces winning these things, because, you know, they're just puff pieces that you've applied for almost.
That's definitely true. And I think a lot of the awards, like, actually I haven't, or a lot of the bigger kind of interior awards I haven't gone for, because purely down to a time reason, because they take so much time to apply for and all that kind of thing. But they are a really good indication of, you know, quality in the industry. So, you know, I would like to have more time to dedicate to that, but I suppose it's just, you know, with the business, it's just about priorities, you know.
I'm going to write a note on here, say, right, we need to get a virtual assistant for Emily here, you know, to spend all day applying for stuff, you know. But then I guess you've got to make it a sustainable way. It's like where your business is right now, you know, maybe you have got the right balance between exposure and inbound and lead gen. It's not like you could, you know, you don't want to be hiring 20 new people overnight and go, this is going too fast. It's got to be built in a sustainable way.
Yeah, exactly. Like with that type of thing, I guess it's not a priority because I don't need it to be at the
Yeah,
moment. You know, I generate the right amount of business for myself at the moment. So I
yeah,
don't really need to, to
brilliant.
go after it like
Plus,
that.
I love the use of the word at the moment as well. There's those aspirations there for the future. So this is a tricky question, and I bring this up because, this could relate to anybody who's a life coach, a personal coach, a consultant. We've had all sorts of people on the show, chefs, consultants, PTs, like I said. So when you're working with clients, I imagine there's a bit of toing and froing between you. You want the best possible outcome for the client, but they also have in their mind what their outcome wants to be from it. How do you go in terms of working with a client, really, in terms of pushing through your agenda, but also making sure you're not compromising, but also getting them to where they need to be?
Yeah, that's always a tough one. I guess the important thing with that is to make sure that you're aligned at the beginning of the
Yeah.
process. So I have a pretty stringent process that I go through before even starting the design,
Yeah.
which I've developed over the last few years. So I guess the first thing is really qualifying the client in terms of understanding that they are wanting the type of service that I offer, and they in turn are the right client for me. So
Yeah.
that's before we even go into the process. And then once we know that we're both going to work well together, then it's about putting in the groundwork before you get into the detail of the design. So we'll work together a lot on the brief. I will come back with with lots of different kind of styles and options and all sorts of kind of choices at the very beginning. I'll kind of throw things at the client that they won't expect as well, like a lot of stuff that wouldn't have been in their brief at all, just so that so it gets them in a different headspace, that they kind of open their mind a bit, and also cool. So it kind of opens up. It's hard for people to articulate what they want in terms of design, like they might throw out something like industrial. I like industrial design, but like that could mean something completely different to two different people. Yeah. So I might show them maybe 10 different industrial images and ask, for real detail of like, what do you think about that? Or what about that light? Or what about, how this layout works? And once you kind of drill into the detail rather than like the overall umbrella of like the term industrial, then you start getting into the nitty gritty of really what do they want and don't want.
On a fairly granular level, I guess you need to get in there.
Yeah. And then once I do that, then I come up with an overall concept. So that's kind of coming together, that's the bringing together of every kind of strand of detail that I've plucked from them, over the previous kind of few weeks. So like, I'll have put together kind of, the parts that I know that they've talked a lot about, stuff that they kind of mentioned. So the patterns emerge. Yeah. And basically from that, then I'll come up with a concept, an overall concept of like, this is how I think this place will look, feel, beyond the functionality. And that's really when we know we're going in the right direction. And if they say, yeah, that's perfect, then off we go in the design. And it's like, there's very few times then after that like, there'll be a big blow up in terms of, this is not the right direction.
They wake up in a pool of sweat in the night, like, what was I thinking? It's just like,
it doesn't really happen because we put so much groundwork in before that it doesn't really happen. Where they might also say, no, this isn't the right concept, and that's fine. We go back again. But it's all about that part, which can be a bit frustrating sometimes for the client, because they're like, we just want to get to the good part, but like that's what makes it successful. I think
pre-qualify, and I guess there has to be a point where you say to the clients, look, this is the point of no return to an extent. Changing this, because one thing they change might impact the flow and the rest of the room and stuff like that as well.
No, there's always compromise, like on details through. I definitely do try. I say to clients, like, I'm here to kind of to make you braver, you know, like there might be a feature that they are worried about and they're kind of erring on the side of caution. And if it's something that I think is really integral to the design, I will push it.
Yeah.
But there's always give and take. Like there will always be aspects where I'll say, look, yeah, no, that's fine. That's, you know, that's
yeah.
It's your home. Yeah, but if it's something integral, then I will stick to my guns.
And you've got to, and look, I'm not being funny, it's the people who don't stick to their guns, you know, you right, use the word right, you know, compromise, you know, like you've got to find some middle ground, but also they are hiring you for a reason. You've managed to get to this stage in your career because you bring these. And at the end of the day, if you put your name on something which you don't believe in, then again, it's a bit of a race to the bottom, really, in terms of that quality and what is an Emily design or something. It's quite interesting. You know, I use that example because, you know, we talk to people who are, like I said, personal trainers, life coaches, startup consultants. It's kind of like, where do they want to, you know, they've obviously got a goal in mind, the person. Does he want to be ripped for the beach, or is somebody trying to make health lifestyle changes for illness or whatever? But, you know, there can be many ways of getting there as well, but it's a to and fro, and it's all about building relationships, really, isn't it, with clients and people you're working with.
Yeah.
Now, this kind of follows on from this. So this, you mentioned this earlier on, but I imagine your role has a hell of a lot of project management tied to it. You know, you need to be able to delegate. You have to successfully manage a team. You have to bring, I guess, freelancers or partners on board. How have you kind of approached this? Because, you know, like you said, before you got into this, you know, you've done events, which I guess is kind of similar. You've done some remote work and work with partners, but has this again been a massive learning curve? You know, how do you bring that project to life and make sure everybody stays on track?
Yeah, so definitely, again, the project managing side of it was something I think that I wasn't quite expecting, or, you know, which sounds ridiculous. Again, I had an idea of like being a designer, sitting at my design table and coming up with these beautiful projects and not really thinking about the practical side of it. The project managing is definitely the most challenging side of it, because you've got multiple stakeholders, and you are not executing the design yourself. You've got you've got joiners and tilers and all the rest of it that are doing it on your behalf. So it's all about, first of all, finding the right people, which unfortunately can be a case of trial and error at the beginning. Fortunately, now I have a great team.
Well, yeah, I guess that's it. You've built it, because I saw you obviously have things like the art interior side projects. And that's it. And I think one of your USPs is that you work with master crafts people locally, or maybe for the field. So I guess again, it's building those systems in place, of knowing those
systems, exactly. And it's all about collaboration. Like, you know, even when it comes to who you think is your competition, I have been working a lot more recently with people that you may from the outside think are my competition, but actually I found that you can really drastically improve on your designs when you're working with other people, when you're collaborating. You know, once you're not too precious about, you know, feedback and kind of working, maybe working back on a detail with someone else. That's, I think, where the gold is when you're, you know, on a really good design. So that's the really nice part of working, of project managing.
So I guess you've got to almost like leave your ego at the door to an extent. I guess as a way, you need to be flamboyant and have your signature stamp on things. But if you're working with partners, you've got to compromise in some way.
Absolutely. It's a tightrope. You have to have conviction in your designs, but also you have to be open to working with other people's ideas. So but I'm doing that more and more, and I'm finding that you grow as a designer, and as your creative kind of process grows when you work with other people like that. So I love that.
You might not have thought this, and this is the next question, but you might not have thought this when you started, you know, but there is a good knowledge and saying that, you know, one of the most precious resources for an entrepreneur is time. You know, it isn't money. I'm sure when you were starting out, you were like, it's definitely money. I need money to pay my bills. I need to do this and that.
I have nothing.
Exactly. But I think, you know, as you've kind of got into it now and you have your portfolio and brand and everything like that, you know, things are going really well for you. In terms of that, you know, have you ever thought, you know, for the future, looking about how you can, you know, almost like port your knowledge to other people, you know, like with you know, Emily, you know, an InSpace design school for other, you know, and I mean this maybe as like an online resource, but have you looked about how you can build, you know, like one-time assets, which, you know, you can build out your brand further, almost like a self-help version for people who want to get into design, who maybe need videos designing. You could, you know, subscribe to a service from you and they get the input from you and your why, but you're physically not having to be there. But again, you can grow your empire through education.
Yeah, it's something that has been pitched to me before.
Yeah.
It's not something at the moment that I would see myself doing.
Yeah.
But I do, coming back to the part about time, I do see the value in creating income that's not solely based on my sweat.
Yeah.
So I think I have been certainly thinking about that, and I think the next step for the business is probably going to be a furniture line. So
very cool. I like the idea of that.
Yeah, well, this is what I mean, look, it might be a couple of years down the line, but I do this anyway for clients. I design a lot of custom pieces. So I have been thinking that would be a great way of generating income. You know, that isn't dependent on my time. But also it's something, again, that I'm passionate about. I would love to do that at some stage. It's just finding the time.
Yeah, which is a good, you know, that brings the loop together really on the question. But I asked this because a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, we've interviewed and spoken to ourselves, you know, they've actually seen that COVID has brought it forward, that they've gone, well, I can't do my in-life events. What I can do is build a video series, or I can do Zoom cookery classes or whatever that brings a lot more people together. I mean, it's maybe, you know, apples, oranges, you know, in terms of what you do, but it's, you know, almost like building these mini strands. But I guess that's a problem for down the road, when in like 5-10 years, when you're just like, wow, you know, now is the time to take that leap and do something like that as well.
Maybe Masterclass will approach me at that stage.
Well, who knows? You mean, who knows? It's I'll be one of your students, you know. And you know, a question I always ask, because I think this is so important of all entrepreneurs, is, you know, what, you might laugh at this as well, but what kind of work-life balance, you know, do you have in terms of your role? You know, like what sort of things do you put in place to relax and take a step back? I know you said it's kind of all consuming because you see inspiration everywhere, but you know, what sort of stuff do you put into your daily life just to kind of keep it all together?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, you're like, if you got any answers, let me know.
I just woke up like this. Yeah, I sleep here. You know what? My business is there's really peaks and troughs in terms of time investment, depending on where we are in, say, the building stage, or where we are in the stage of the project. So in terms of design, like it's much easier for me to manage my time because I'm at home. But when it comes to the construction stage, I'm often out and about at all kind of different times of days and nights and weekends and everything else. But when I have a normal kind of workload, I really try to not work at the weekends like that. Like, I won't lie and say I only work 8 hours a day during the week, because I don't. I work a lot during the week. But weekends I do really try not to work. And I mean, it's not the most original answer to that question, but that's
Well, I think that's fine. I mean, look, I mean, some people do, it can be all consuming if you run your own business. So I think having that kind of rule is probably a really good cornerstone to everything you do, because you can probably, I guess, run on the adrenaline through the week. If you're working on a project and you're like, I'm doing 12-hour days, I want to get this, but you might be frazzled by Friday and go, I need this time to recharge.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually, the other thing as well is I'm always conscious that the reason really that I want to work for myself and not anyone else is because I love travel and I want to have time to travel. Now, of course, that hasn't happened in the last year, but previous to that, and hopefully, from the second half of this year.
Oh God, I hope so.
I do always, as a rule, make a lot of time for holidays. Like I will take 3 weeks off and then another 4 weeks a few months later. Sometimes that is a bit of a shock to clients, that you're not available at all for a few weeks at a time, because that's not probably usual for someone that runs their own business. But that is a really, really important aspect to me, and that's a deal breaker for me in terms of having your own business.
Well, it is. I mean, look, at the end of the day, why are you doing this? That's the bottom line. It has to fill your passions, whatever, but why should you conform to set societal rules that you're allowed a few weeks holiday a year and that's it? If that's what drives you and does it and recharges you to be the best you can do. There's many drivers beyond money.
And that then means that I don't mind working long hours, in the run up to a project or whatever, or daily, but I know that my priority is always going to be, that month coming up or wherever else, I will take that time off.
Brilliant. And do you know what, like holidays, 100%, I think if there was
they're coming back, I hope.
If there was a house fire, I think I'd be running in, a cat under each arm and my passport in my thing. It's just that. So hopefully, obviously, the kids in hand are out the door, but do you know what I mean? It's like, that's kind of the passport is the big thing, and travel especially, like it's been quite a crazy year and a bit, hasn't it? Right. We're moving into our rapid fire round, Emily. Now, you can be as rapid as you want, or you can give a little bit of flavour on each one. So nothing to trip you up, but who are your favourite entrepreneurs in life and why?
Oh, gosh. Favourite entrepreneurs, Khalees would be one of them. I was listening to a podcast with her recently, and I just love how she lives her life and how she's transitioned from music to food, and she has a sauce line, and she's a cordon bleu chef, and now she's moved to a farm where she can immerse herself fully in the process.
I think she has a cannabis business and everything as well. That's tied in,
she's amazing. So I think that she's a really good example of, being an entrepreneur, but on your own terms.
Okay, this is great. We don't have Khalees on the list yet, and again, it's not a trick question. Eclecticism, I think, is the word to describe that. So that's great. Hopefully, this isn't the same answer, but it could be. Who's your most inspiring person in life and why?
Oh wow, my mum.
She's not on the list, I can guarantee you as well, but she will be now.
Well, on a personal level, I would say my mum, because she's an amazing woman. She knows her own mind, and she's very capable of anything she puts her mind to.
Brilliant.
On a professional level, there's so many designers out there, that I just love. Kelly Wersler is probably one of them. Again, she's someone that her style and her brand is just immediately recognizable. And she puts a lot of work into her designs. She comes up with a story around the project, and every aspect of the interior design feeds into that story. So it's got a cohesiveness to it. And she might design the pattern of the fabrics that's used. She might work with a sculpturist, and she has her own hotels now so she would be up there.
So owning the journey and building a cohesive story around it, but like you said, owning each part of it as well. So that's brilliant, because that's going on the list. So, and when I say it's going on the list, we're compiling a number of articles and resources where our solopreneurs who come on the show are able to share their most inspiring people and that. So, this is a great thing. You'll be added to all the others as well.
Great.
When you set up your business, I don't know if you are an avid reader of business books or anything like that, but what kind of resources would you maybe suggest to other entrepreneurs who are maybe just thinking of starting or running a business? Is there anything which you rely on and you go, that was a really great thing that just really helped me, or this is something I refer to now?
I'm not a huge reader of business books and that kind of thing. I love Guy Raz, How I Built This. I love listening to stories of entrepreneurs when they talk about, the hard parts that they kind of came through, because it does kind of, on a bad day or whatever, it does kind of make you remember everyone has been through this, I think, and the other, I suppose one other thing is like, it's not a resource, but I do use a lot of kind of business networking groups within Dublin, and I find that it's really worth being in those types of groups, because it gives you kind of support and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like the term of the bored you can't afford, like those people that those experts in different fields that you built into your network that you can that you can lean on.
Yeah, that's massive. Peer support networks as well. And again, just to bring up Guy Raz, I really like your show as well. I think it's so well pitched. It doesn't seem, it just seems very real. Like you said, you look forward to listening to the next episode. You go, this is going to be an hour, even if you're doing your laundry or whatever while you're listening to it. It's a really nice hour where actually you've gone on a journey and you feel more inspired as well to carry on as well. Through your, you probably don't strike me as somebody who looks back a lot in life, but if there was anything which you could do differently that you had, you might laugh here, but anything differently you could have done in terms of running your business so far that you think, I probably shouldn't have made that mistake, or maybe I shouldn't have done that. Is there anything that comes to mind where you go, I probably would have done that a bit differently next time?
I mean, there's a lot, like there's a multitude of mistakes, I guess, because you're learning as you go. But I don't think so. I don't think there's anything, that I could just kill myself for doing, because
you just see them as a learning.
You have to just learn. You have to, unfortunately, it's just a steep learning curve, and it all leads you to a certain point. So
brilliant. That's what I like to see. But it's so true, isn't it? You won't do it again if
I don't want to open the dark doldrums of my mistake.
Push down. That is so true. If time was of no significance when running your business, what do you think would be, say, like the number one thing you wish you could do day in, day out that would maybe benefit your business and yourself and move you on a bit quicker? Let's forget all the accountancy and all the other admin-y crap. What sort of thing would you double down on if you felt it would make a real impact on your business?
I would love to have more time just reading and, reading about other designers and artists and looking at other work. At the weekends I tend to do that. I have my books and my magazines and newspapers and all these things, and I just consume them. But I would love to have more time daily to do that, because I think you do feel so inspired when you look at what other people are doing. Yeah,
that's the dream, isn't it? And I prepped you for this, and I hope you've got one. But is there a funny anecdote that you've maybe got that's happened to you in the world of business, that people can relate to? We've had so far, we've had people doing secret supper clubs and guests turning up on the wrong night at their house. We've had people being put on panels to lead a panel, but being put on the wrong panel with the wrong guests. Is there anything that's really funny that you thought, shit, that was hard work at the time, but actually you could look back and laugh at now?
Do you know what? You did prep me for this, but I didn't think of one. No, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one.
Don't worry, we can edit it in, or we'll add it to our blog of this podcast as well later on if you do obviously go. But I think, the reason I bring this up is that for a lot of people who've interviewed, it's been fairly soul destroying when something like that happens and you go, but actually with time and months on, you go, well, I managed to get through that, it's, but these things kind of come up in day-to-day life. And the reason I ask this question is that random stuff will happen. And, it's a case of just going, well, it probably isn't quite as bad as you'd think at the time.
Yeah. There's a lot of things like that, but I guess they're maybe not that hilarious.
Fair enough. If something comes to mind, WhatsApp it to me and I'll add it. That's so. As an entrepreneur, what ultimately does success mean to you?
I've actually been thinking about this a lot over the last year, the whole existential crisis of this year. I think what success actually is going to mean to me is it kind of comes back to the working on my own terms thing, living to work, or working to live rather than living to work. So success ultimately for me, I think, is going to be being able to construct a lifestyle, a certain lifestyle that I want to have, and my work fitting in with that. And so that kind of means that I'm able to enjoy the passion side of the interiors business, and also my personal life side by side. And hopefully that means working with the clients that I like to work with and doing the types of designs that I like to do, but having a nice balance, with my own life.
And still getting off to Miami once a year to check out some Art Deco architecture and whatever you need to do.
Exactly. Up to Lisbon and
sounds like a dream. For those people out there thinking of taking the plunge and going solo, what advice would you give to them?
I think do your research, talk to as many people as you can. That's the main thing for me is, I touched on it before, the network that you create, the board you can't afford, meeting with people that you think could be your competition and making them your friends. Meeting with people just in business that may not be in your particular line of work, but anyone that really that you can kind of soak up information from, that you can work with. That's really my big thing. And when there's hard days, you can lean on them. When there's good days, you can work with them and do some really cool stuff together. So and the other one is my accountant I had before told me when I was having a bad day, and he said to me, you should do once a quarter, take yourself out for lunch and just sit down and just think about the previous 3 months or the previous 6 months and think about what have you achieved in those 6 months, because often you're just you working and you're thinking about the day to day and you don't really think about like, Jesus, how far have I come in the last 6 months, in the last year? And it's nice to just take an hour just to think about that, because you will have always progressed no matter what you initially think.
No, that's great advice, and quite ironic coming from the accountant. I guess maybe they didn't say go to a Michelin-starred restaurant and think about it over 12 courses.
Go somewhere nice. He's my kind of accountant.
I like this actually. You have to hook him up with me as well. So right, couple more questions and then we're done. But if I was to bump into you in the street in 3, 4, 5 years time, what's the vision in terms of where you want the business to be at that time?
The vision, I think it will be, hopefully there will be, as I said, a furniture line there, and the brand will just be more recognizable. I don't have aspirations to have a huge company with lots of people working for me. I like the fact that my company is small and I want to continue with that, but hopefully I will at that stage have some nice projects under my belt, that I really want to work on, maybe a hotel, maybe some nice retail spaces, maybe it's a house in Lisbon, big projects that enable me to really be creative, and that I'm given the time and space and budget to do that, I guess.
And done in a sustainable way, like you're saying, that fits in with where you're at, and just the right balance between adrenaline and stress, but actually you're very fulfilling your life, and you're living your destiny, basically. Brilliant.
That's the dream.
Right, where can everybody find you online, Emily?
InSpace.ie is the website, and Instagram is Go in Space.
Go in Space.
So you can find me on there, and I'm always happy to chat with anyone. If there is anyone out there that is thinking about taking the plunge, I'm always happy to give support or advice. And of course, if there's anyone that is looking for some really interesting, considered, fun, creative, joyful design, then please give me a shout.
And I'm sure we will do. We will get that out there as well. Well, that just leaves me to say, Emily from InSpace, we really appreciate you coming and joining us on the Go Solo show today. Thanks for taking the time, and good luck, obviously, for the future.
Thanks, Jonny. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. Catch up soon.